Hello and welcome. When I've spoken to women going through their midlife, one of the most common things they say to me is, I don't know who I am anymore. I've lost myself. I don't feel like myself. And my family say I've changed, and there's a sense of, where have I gone? So it's just not physically, it's also mentally. And it's very, very common that women going through the menopause, perimenopause, feel as though they've completely lost themselves. And so I want to address that today. So my name is Sam. I'm a nutritional therapist, and my aim is to help women going through the menopause into older life as easily and simply as possible, because it needn't be as painful as many people find it to be. So I'm aiming to help. But I don't like to go into things too deeply because I'm not the best expert at the science. But I want to try and give you snippets that may be of assistance, and to tell you, you're not alone with this. This is very common. And so let's talk about this. I've got my notes. I've got to hold my glasses today. The arm is broken, so it keeps falling off. So excuse me if I keep putting my hand up. So basically this sort of situation occurs because of the fluctuation in our hormones. Our estrogen and progesterone, they drop quite significantly as we go into the perimenopause. But then it's the balance between all the hormones, that fluctuation, the amount that appears and how quickly it disappears, and the balance between them that can be problematic here. So there are things we can do that can actually assist us to get better balance in those areas. And this influences not just things like hot flushes and inflammation, aches, but it also has a huge impact. These hormones have a huge impact on our brains, on our mood, on our memory, on our irritability, on our levels of anxiety, which could be really heightened. And we start to feel out of control. I've got down energy and sleep. Our stress responses tend to be heightened as well, so we might overreact to something we would otherwise have just taken in our stride. And we find, why? Why is this happening? I've got a list of wonderful things here that we can experience. Feeling really quite emotionally flat, just feeling very little. We know we lose libido, again related with the brain as much as the body. We're less motivated, we're less confident. Brain fog, I think we all relate to this time of our life, and forgetfulness. But the emotional side of things, how we feel sort of lacking in confidence, is something we perhaps don't put at the door of perimenopause or menopause. And of course it can be something else as well. But being aware of all the things that could be triggering these feelings is, I think, helps us deal with them more than anything. We could feel disconnected to activities that we used to enjoy, and I think that's interesting. So if you enjoyed doing botanical painting, for want of a better idea, you may find that you're not interested anymore, but it can come back. I mean, these things are all very much potentially temporary. So as I say, it can be very much related to the hormones. It may be also our lifestyle. At this stage of our lives, we do experience a lot of tests on our stress levels. You know, if you've got, you're running a home, you're working, full-time job, often you're at a level where you've progressed and you have responsibilities and deadlines. That can be quite overwhelming. You may have children who are at school taking exams, and that's a very stressful time for the whole family. But I do meet mothers who are really invested in how the children are coping, and that's an extra stress. It could be that your children are leaving home. They could be going into university. They may be having their own life challenges that you also feel as though you need to resolve. You may have older parents. You may have older parents-in-law that you're looking after, running to and from appointments, helping them sort out things they're no longer able to do, walking the dogs, which my dogs are here, so they might bark. There's a heck of a lot that goes on at this time, and I think we need to also be realistic about, are we actually doing too much? Are we taking on too much? You know, with your hormones fluctuating as well, maybe this is just like the straw that broke the camel's back. So it's being aware of what's going on in your life as well. As you know, it could be hormones, but it could be something else. So what can we do? Well, first of all, of course, you can go and see a doctor. I'm not a doctor, but you could go and see a doctor and see what could be done there. And particularly if there's something else going on, like it is depression, then that's a different approach in many ways, but food can still be beneficial there. So when I've worked with clients like this, I've looked at what they're eating, when they're eating, and very much how their lifestyle's working, because I tend to try and get them to ease up the lifestyle in one way or another. So I had a client a few years ago who was running her children to school, then going into a very responsible position as a healthcare worker, and parking up outside work, waiting to go in, not allowed to eat whilst at work, and therefore she was selecting unsuitable packaged foods that weren't supporting her. So we got to the point where we did a nice breakfast, say berries and yogurt and a few nuts and seeds, that she was able to take in a Tupperware pot with her. So when she was parked outside waiting to go in, she was eating her breakfast then. And then we came up with ideas for lunch, so that when she did get a moment, there was something ready, prepared, that was easy, because she doesn't have much time in the morning. Let's be honest, you're getting the kids ready, you haven't got much time. And it made a huge difference to her. The family meals in the evening became the whole family meal rather than separate meals, looking at fresh vegetables and fruits as a real sort of base, being very aware of reducing processed foods and high sugar foods. That was another thing that's so easy to reach for high sugar snacks to keep you going, and it was becoming aware of how often that was happening, and also that a packet of crisps can be quite high in sugar because of the potato. So we changed all that very gradually over time, and she came to see me and said, my husband sent a message for you. I was thinking, oh glory, what's this about? And his message was, thank you for giving me my wife back. So that was a highlight moment for me, to know that working together we'd really address some of the things that were really taking her down this road of feeling irritable with everybody, out of control. She was doing exams as well for work, very important exams, tough ones with, you know, not just sitting down with paperwork, but interviews and boards and things. So she was going through a lot, and basically we worked on staying calm for that as well. But it was very much to do with focusing on foods that were going to support essential fatty acids. These are very good for the brain. There's quite a lot of science behind this. Good for the blood vessels, getting the blood through to the brain. And that was things like oily fish. And I find them quite convenient, particularly tins are not great. Let's be honest, a tinned item, you can get contamination from the lining in the tin. However, we've got to be practical about what we can do. And a step forward is better than no step at all. And I always see this as improving. We want to look for progress, not perfection. So tinned fish in spring water, for instance, rather than fats, because plasticizers can go into the fats. So if you've got a water, it's less likely to happen. Using what I know, I don't know scientifically whether that's true, I've not looked that up on papers, but with what I understand, with fats can actually absorb plastics, and so we need to be careful about what containers we utilise. But oily fish, incredibly good for the brain, and anything where you can get these essential fatty acids. So we've got things like, you know, you can get them from nuts and seeds as well. Olive oil is great. avocado, all sorts of things. If you just have natural foods, push the processed foods further down your selection, and if you can eradicate them, all to the good. So that's one of the things we did, and we looked, as I say, we looked at when to eat, because her eating habits were very sort of not so much erratic as expansive. So she wasn't eating before work, didn't get much chance to eat at work other than picking processed foods. So getting a more regular eating times, so she didn't reach for the wrong thing, really helped. And in her instance, eating a good breakfast, simple, not huge amounts, that really helped with the balance for the rest of the day. So timing of your meals, see what you can do. I do believe in being able to take something with you if you've got the facility to be able to eat before work, in your car, at your desk, then that's an option. We also looked at exercise and sleep as a priority as well, because if we don't get good sleep, that our stress levels can rise from that. We need good sleep for the brain to download the information it's learnt during the day, and particularly when you're doing exams, that's good to make sure you get to bed at a good time, get up at the same time each day, and try and get the sort of 7 to 9 hours of good sleep. And then exercise, not overdoing the exercise. So many women overdo it at this stage of life and do back-to-back classes, and that stresses the body, and it will not release the body fat and utilise it if you're doing stressful levels of exercise. And when it does release the sugars from the fat stores, often it will redeposit it back around the middle. So doing some regular exercise, some weights, some cardio, things like yoga and Pilates are very good, and Tai Chi as well, because you use muscle groups. That would be preferable to doing back-to-back body pump and other high intensity classes, and trying to do more and more and more. Doing less, I've found with clients, has often been much better when it comes to mood, when it comes to weight management, when it comes to hormone balance. So there are just a few things I'd suggest. Being very aware really of the food you're eating, having them as natural as possible, and looking at the times you're eating, including foods that support the brain, which the natural foods do, and essential fatty acids are particularly beneficial here. Keeping hydrated is also good, and you will get lots of nutrients that will support you at this time. So I hope you find yourselves, I hope you find that these mood issues start to dissipate, and you start to feel more like yourself, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. And ask your family what they think as you go through it. You know, how do you find me today? Because when they notice it as well. So thank you very much for joining me today. Please like and subscribe. I'd very much appreciate that. It doesn't cost anything. And please share this with somebody who may benefit. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.